What if Daenerys hadn't burnt King's Landing? A single choice, a single moment. A dragon circles above King's Landing. The bells of surrender ring through the streets. The city waits for fire, but it never comes. In another world, Daenerys Targaryen burned them all. She became Queen of the Ashes, the Mad Queen reborn. But not here. Here, she hesitates. The war is won. The city is hers. But mercy has a cost. Because mercy does not end the Game of Thrones. It only changes the rules. This is the story of Daenerys Targaryen, the queen who conquered without fire, and of Jon Snow, the man who tried to save her and failed. The throne room of the Red Keep is silent. The golden banners of House Lannister still hang above, but they mean nothing now. The queen who ruled from this hall for years kneels at its center, bound in chains. Cersei Lannister, the Lion of the Rock, the Queen of the Seven Kingdoms, has lost everything. Her armies are gone. Her allies are dead. Her family is no more. Jaime Lannister, the only soul who ever truly loved her, died from his wounds after the battle with Euron Greyjoy. He was found among the wreckage near Dragonstone, his sword still in hand. He fought for her. He died for her. But in the end, she is alone. Now she kneels before Daenerys Targaryen, the woman she once mocked, the woman she once called a foreign invader, the woman who has taken everything from her. Tyrion Lannister watches from the sidelines. His face is unreadable, his emotions locked away behind tired eyes. This is the moment he has waited for, but there is no satisfaction in it. The trial was swift, her crime is undeniable. But Daenerys, eager to prove herself a just ruler, chose not to execute her. Gasps ripple through the room. Grey Worm remains stone-faced, but the tension in his shoulders betrays him. The unsullied exchange glances, unsure. Even Jon Snow looks at Daenerys, surprised. But Cersei smiles. Mercy, the one thing she never gave to her enemies, and yet it has been given to her. Exile. A life in the ruins of Casterly Rock, stripped of power, left to fade into irrelevance, a fate worse than death, to be forgotten, to fade into irrelevance. But fate is not so kind. That night, in the quiet halls of the Red Keep, the shadows move. A torch flickers outside Cersei's chamber. She sits alone, staring at nothing. Then, footsteps, slow, measured. A figure enters the room. She squints into the dim light, and then she gasps. A man stands before her. His golden hair shines in the firelight. His red Lannister coat is unmistakable. Jaime Lannister, whole, alive. Her breath catches. She rises to her feet, hesitant, almost afraid to believe it's real. He steps closer, cupping her face in his hands. His touch is warm, familiar. She whispers loving words, a tear slipping down her cheek. And then, his hands tighten around her throat. But this is not Jaime Lannister. Arya Stark stares back at her, her grip unrelenting. Cersei gasps, clawing at her hands, her nails scraping against skin. Her eyes are wide, filled with betrayal. A final desperate breath, then nothing. Arya releases her grip, letting Cersei's body fall to the stone floor. She watches for a long moment, then slowly peels Jaime's face from her own. She stares at it, her expression unreadable, before casting it aside. In the end, Cersei Lannister died believing she was in the arms of her brother, just as the prophecy foretold. The Valonqar wrapped his hands around her throat and ended her reign forever. The next morning, a raven flies from the Red Keep. The news spreads. Cersei Lannister is dead. But there is no evidence, no suspect, a crime that will go unpunished. And yet, the message is clear. In this new world, no ruler is untouchable. The war for the throne is over, but in the shadows, another war has already begun. The war is over. The Mad Queen never rose. The city still stands, its people spared from fire and death. But peace does not come so easily. Before we get into what happened to Jon and Daenerys' alliance, like and subscribe. A conqueror sits on the Iron Throne, but her kingdom is not whole. The North resists, the Vale watches, the Stormlands whisper, and in the great hall of the Red Keep, a choice is made. Jon Snow stands before Daenerys Targaryen. His armor is still stained with the blood of battle, but his face is unreadable. He does not kneel. He does not smile. Daenerys turns to Jon, her expression measured, searching for an answer she already knows. They will never accept her. Not truly. Jon exhales, his voice careful, deliberate. The truth is unavoidable. They fear her. For a moment, silence hangs between them. Then something flickers in Daenerys' eyes. Something dark, something certain. Aegon the Conqueror had been feared, and his dynasty had lasted for centuries. Perhaps fear is not a burden, but a weapon. Jon looks away. He has no answer that will satisfy her. From the corner of the room, Tyrion watches. He sees distance growing between them, the quiet, fragile tension that holds the realm together. Tyrion Lannister knows what is coming. He has spent his life navigating power, and he knows what happens when a ruler feels alone. But Daenerys is not alone, not yet. The next morning, in the throne room, the lords and nobles gather. The Unsullied stand guard. The Dothraki watch from the shadows. And Daenerys, dressed in Targaryen black, stands before them all. Her voice is steady, commanding. The realm must be whole. She turns to Jon. For the first time since the war ended, she smiles. Power must be solidified. Alliances must be forged, not just in battle, but in name, in blood. And so, she makes her decision. She will take a king to rule beside her. Murmurs ripple through the hall. Jon does not move. He expected this. He knew it was coming. Daenerys lifted their hands together, a public show of unity. To some, it is a promise of peace. To others, a warning of what's to come. Grey Worm remains silent, his gaze locked on Jon. He does not trust him. He never has. Tyrion lowers his head slightly, deep in thought. He had hoped this would calm Daenerys, that she would see it as a path to peace. But he knows better. He knows that every alliance forged in fire carries the risk of being consumed by it. Far from the Red Keep, beyond the green waters of the Trident, beyond the rolling hills of the Riverlands, another war is beginning. Not one fought with swords and dragons, but with letters and whispers, with loyalty and defiance. In the great hall of Winterfell, Sansa Stark stands before her bannermen. A fire crackles behind her, casting long shadows across the ancient stone walls. The air is tense. A raven has come from the south, bearing news of Daenerys' victory, news of Jon Snow's marriage. The lords of the north murmur amongst themselves. Their thoughts are the same. Jon Snow, the man they named King in the North, has bent the knee once again. Lord Manderly's voice cuts through the silence, sharp with indignation. Is this their fate? To kneel once more to a Targaryen? His words are bitter, heavy with the weight of generations lost to southern rule. Across the hall, Lady Waynwood presses her lips together. The Manderlys exchange uneasy glances. And yet, more than anyone, Lyanna Mormont's absence is felt. A voice that would have spoken without hesitation, now only an echo in their memory. But Sansa does not react. She lets the words hang in the air, lets the anger simmer, lets them feel their own discontent before she silences it with a single gesture. When she finally speaks, Her voice is steady, unwavering. Jon Snow is her brother. She trusts him with her life, but he is not a Stark by name, and he was never meant to rule the North. Murmurs ripple through the lords. Some nod in agreement. Others hesitate, unwilling to let go of their doubts. Sansa steps forward, her gaze sweeping across them, her presence commanding, not through force, but through certainty. Then Lord Manderly speaks again. His voice is softer this time, but no less resolute. He recalls the words once spoken by a fierce young girl, a reminder of who they are, of what the North has sworn itself to. We know no king but the king in the North, whose name is Stark, not House Targaryen. A beat of silence follows, stretching long and tense. Then Lord Serwyn rises from his seat. His voice rings through the hall, steady and sure. The North is yours, Lady Stark. One by one, the lords follow, some in agreement, some in resignation. But in this moment, the truth becomes undeniable. The North has made a choice, and it will not kneel. One by one, the other lords rise, placing their hands over their hearts. A quiet vow, stronger than any words. The North remembers, and the North will not kneel. But word spreads beyond Winterfell's walls. In the shadows of the Dreadfort, in the halls of Carhold, in the quiet corridors of Castle Black, there are those who question, who doubt, who fear what this means. And in King's Landing, Daenerys Targaryen stands before a map of Westeros. Her fingers trace over the north, stopping on Winterfell. Her expression is unreadable. Then, slowly, her jaw tightens. Tyrion stands beside her, his hands clasped behind his back. He watches carefully, knowing what is coming before she even speaks. Her voice is quiet, yet razor-sharp. They defy her. Tyrion hesitates, choosing his words carefully. He had warned her of this. She had always known the North would resist. Their loyalty to the Starks ran deeper than blood, deeper than oaths. But Daenerys does not see defiance. She sees betrayal. Jon had sworn himself to her, and now his own sister seeks to break the realm apart. She exhales sharply, stepping back from the table. The flames from the nearby hearth flicker against her silver hair. Her voice remains calm, but there is a storm behind it, one that threatens to break. A raven must be sent. Lady Stark will kneel or burn. Tyrion's breath catches. For a moment, he wonders if he has misheard. But no. Daenerys stands unmoving, her gaze set, her resolve unshaken. Winterfell is not Cersei's city, he reminds her. Its people are not ruled by fear. A dragon over their walls will not inspire obedience. It will only inspire war. Slowly, Daenerys turns to him. Her eyes are cold, sharp as Valyrian steel. If fear is the only language they understand, then she will make them understand. A deep, guttural growl shakes the Red Keep as Drogon stirs on the balcony outside, sensing his riders' unrest. The air thickens with heat, the weight of impending fire pressing against the stone walls. Tyrion swallows, his fingers tightening behind his back. He must tread carefully now. Fear is not the way to rule, he urges her, but Daenerys steps closer. Her voice is quiet, but it crushes the air between them. She will rule. Tyrion says nothing. He sees it now, the fire behind her eyes. The same fire that once consumed her father. He turns away, exhaling slowly. This is not over. Not yet. Meanwhile, beyond the walls of Winterfell, a lone rider moves swiftly through the snow-covered forests. Hood drawn, cloak billowing, a dagger at her side. Arya Stark is coming home. She left King's Landing with blood on her hands, and she knows better than anyone, when a ruler feels threatened, blood is always repaid with blood. The war for the throne is over, but the war for the North has only begun. The banners of House Targaryen hang high over King's Landing. The city is hers, the throne is hers, but the realm The realm is slipping away. In the halls of the Red Keep, Daenerys stands over the great map of Westeros. Her fingers hover over Winterfell, tracing its edges. She does not speak, but her silence carries weight. Heavy, deliberate, dangerous. Then her decision is made. Drogon will fly to Winterfell. She will go herself. Her voice is calm, but beneath the stillness lies fire. Jon hears it. Tyrion senses it, a quiet warning ready to ignite. Tyrion stiffens, his hands clasped tightly behind his back, but it is Jon who steps forward first. A single word cuts through the chamber, firm and unwavering. No. The room stills. Daenerys' gaze snaps to his, and for a long, tense moment, no one speaks. This is not how they rule, he tells her. This is not how peace is kept. Her jaw tightens. Slowly, she exhales, measured and sharp. She had spared King's Landing. She had shown mercy. And this is how the realm repays her? With defiance? With betrayal? How many times must she extend her hand before she closes it into a fist? Jon holds her gaze, his voice quieter now, but no less certain. The North is not her enemy. Give them time. Let them learn to trust. Her eyes search his face. The fire in them dims just slightly. Beyond the balcony, Drogon shifts, restless. But the moment passes. The storm does not break. Not yet. Days pass, but the tension does not fade. The council chambers grow quieter. Daenerys listens, but she does not forgive. A raven arrives from the Vale. Lord Royce refuses to swear allegiance. A messenger from Dorne delivers a letter, neutral, cautious, but not loyal. And then, her enemies begin to disappear. A minor lord from the Riverlands is found dead in his chambers. Poison, they say. A merchant from the Reach, rumored to have funded a rebellion, is executed in the streets. A council in the Westerlands never takes place. The men meant to attend never arrive. The city does not speak of it, but those who are watching, those who know power when they see it, understand. Jon Snow understands. He watches as the Red Keep grows colder, quieter. He watches as Daenerys' advisors shrink into the shadows. He watches as Tyrion drinks more, speaks less. As Grey Worm stands closer to her, his hand never far from his sword. He watches as Daenerys herself changes. She speaks less, but her silence is heavy. She listens more, but only to those who do not question her. The hope in her eyes is gone. The fire burns colder now. Controlled, deliberate. And Jon realizes the truth. He once thought he could temper her fire, that his presence could be enough. But Daenerys Targaryen is walking the line between conqueror and tyrant, and he is no longer sure which side she will land on. Jon Snow once swore to protect the realm, to serve his queen, to stand by her side. But now, he watches her slip further away, and he knows his queen is becoming the very thing she swore to destroy. And Jon Snow will have to decide before it's too late. Tell us what you think would have happened in the comments below. The Red Keep is silent. The war is over. The throne is won. And yet, in the quiet halls of King's Landing, another battle is about to begin. Jon Snow moves through the corridors with heavy steps. His heart pounds, but not from fear, from certainty. He has made his choice. In the throne room, Daenerys Targaryen stands before the Iron Throne. Her fingers trace the cold steel gliding over the twisted metal. The seat of her ancestors, the dream of her bloodline, the destiny she fought for. And yet, it does not feel as she imagined. Behind her, footsteps echo through the vast chamber. She does not turn. She does not need to. Jon Snow is there. Her voice is soft, almost distant. She had believed that standing here would mean something, that victory would feel like fulfillment. But as she stares at the throne, the realization settles in. It is empty. Finally she turns. Her clear eyes search his, looking for something. Reassurance, devotion, love. But Jon's expression is unreadable. He takes a slow step forward, his voice low, steady. She is not alone. For a brief moment, something flickers in her gaze. Hope, a fragile ember in the cold. She steps closer, closing the space between them. Her voice softer now, almost pleading. Does she still have him? His breath catches, his hands tremble at his sides, and then, slowly, he reaches for her. She exhales, sinking into his embrace. His arms wrap around her, strong, familiar. For a moment, it is just them. A girl born in a storm, and a boy raised in the cold. No throne, no war, no betrayals. But Jon Snow has always known that love and duty do not walk the same path. Then, Daenerys stiffens, her body tenses, her hands clutch at his tunic, fingers grasping, desperate. She pulls back, just enough to look at him. Jon's eyes are glassy, filled with sorrow. Between them, a dagger, a single blade buried deep in her chest, a shallow breath. Her lips part, but no words come. She was his queen, but he swore to protect the realm. Her fingers tighten around his wrist, and then they loosen. She exhales one last breath, and the Dragon Queen is no more. A roar shakes the walls, a sound of rage, of agony, of something far deeper. Drogon lands outside the throne room, his golden eyes locking onto Jon Snow. Smoke curls from his nostrils. His breathing is heavy, slow. Jon kneels beside Daenerys, her lifeless body in his arms. He does not move. He does not speak. He simply waits. Drogon steps forward, lowering his head. His massive claws scrape against the stone floor. He sniffs at his fallen rider. He nudges her, once, twice, but she does not wake, and Drogon understands. His head tilts toward the Iron Throne, the thing that brought her here, the thing that took her from him. His body tenses. Then, fire. A blast of dragon flame engulfs the throne. The steel groans, melting, twisting, collapsing into molten ruin. When the fire fades, the throne is gone. Nothing remains but ash and embers. Drogon turns to Jon one last time. There is no hatred in his eyes, only loss. Then, with a great beat of his wings, he takes Daenerys' lifeless body in his claws and lifts into the sky. Higher, higher, until he disappears beyond the clouds. Jon Snow kneels in the ashes of a dream. He does not cry. He does not speak. Because some choices do not deserve words. Footsteps echo in the distance. The Unsullied are coming. The doors to the throne room creak open, and Grey Worm steps inside. He sees Jon. He sees the blood on Jon's hand. Jon Snow saved the realm, but now he must answer for his crime. The queen is dead, the last dragon has flown, and the 7 kingdoms are leaderless once more. The Red Keep is silent, but the world is not. Ravens take flight, the north receives word first. Sansa Stark stands atop the walls of Winterfell, the message in her hands. She reads it once, then twice. Her fingers tighten around the parchment, but her face betrays nothing. In the halls of Riverrun, the Vale, and the Stormlands, lords whisper. Some call Jon Snow a murderer. Others name him a hero. But none of them know what comes next. And in King's Landing, Jon Snow does not speak as he is taken from the throne room in chains. Grey Worm does not allow him to plead his case. There is no trial, no judgment, only silence. The streets of King's Landing watch as their so-called king is dragged through the city, but no one cheers, no one curses. They only watch. The council is called. The lords and ladies of Westeros gather one final time, not to crown a new king, but to decide the fate of the realm. Tyrion Lannister stands before them. His face is lined with exhaustion, his voice careful but firm. The wheel is broken. Daenerys believed she could shatter it with fire and blood, but fire only leaves ashes, and ashes cannot rule. There is no Iron Throne to claim anymore, no dynasty to uphold. The rulers of Westeros must decide who will lead them. A choice is made, not by conquest, not by blood, but by words. For the first time in history, the Seven Kingdoms choose their ruler. Tyrion Lannister, once Hand of the Queen, becomes the first Lord Regent of Westeros. Not a king, not a conqueror, a steward, meant to guide the realm into something new. The North remains free. Sansa Stark is crowned Queen in the North, kneeling to no one. The Unsullied leave Westeros. Grey Worm does not seek revenge. He boards the ship bound for Naath, his people following him. He does not look back. And Jon Snow is given no crown, no kingdom, no honor, only exile. Castle Black looms before him as he rides toward the wall, Ghost trotting beside him. He does not hesitate. He does not turn back. Beyond the gates, the land stretches endlessly, untouched by war, untouched by kings. Jon Snow does not belong to Westeros anymore. He belongs to the cold, to the unknown. Some say he disappeared into the snow, never to be seen again. Some say he joined the Free Folk, a ghost of the past, wandering the frozen expanse. But others whisper that he still walks beneath the northern lights, farther than any man before him. Jon Snow is a legend now, not a king, not a hero, just a name carried by the wind, fading into the cold. And so, the last chapter is written. The Iron Throne is gone. The realm is changed. The Queen of Dragons is only a memory. But was this the right choice? Jon Snow chose duty over love. He stopped Daenerys before she could become a tyrant. But if she had lived, could she have ruled? Could he have saved her? Or was she always destined to fall? And what of Westeros? A new world begins, one without dragons, without bloodlines, without fire and conquest. But is this truly a better world? Did Jon Snow make the right choice? Let us know in the comments. Would you have done the same? Or would you have tried to find another way? And if you enjoyed this deep dive into an alternate history of Westeros, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. It helps us bring you more content like this and keeps the fires of discussion burning. Turn on notifications so you never miss the next chapter.